Well, greetings. Here we are on September 7th, 2023. My goodness, we are so delighted to see you here live. And I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment and bring us all on camera. I know we've got so many sisters that are going to be coming in and joining us in the Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, our C-Suite Network Council. We're so grateful to C-Suite. Thank you for promoting us, showcasing us, and highlighting us. Our topic today is all about mastering our mindset and breaking through this imposter syndrome, which I call, I'm writing a little mini book about this now, the poser problem. And I would like to, before we get going, I'd like to do a very nice shout out to a woman whom I really admire, appreciate, and I'd like to do a shout out. I admire and appreciate each of you, and especially in this moment, Gloria St. Martin Lowry, who is again, breaking these marvelous things that are happening. I was reading this beautiful local newspaper's a syndicated column by Tribune Service, and Gloria is quoted in here about how leaders can better support their managers.
Oh my
goodness. Gloria, I'm going to send this to you. It was a marvelous article. This is one of many, right, Gloria? You are just everywhere and all things around leadership.
I
Would you
am
like to step in. Yeah, thanks.
I'm excited to see that it was published elsewhere, because the work that I do is online and is starting to get a little bit more traction, and it's nice to see it online. And I don't know, there's something pretty special about you holding up the paper and I get to see it right there. So I feel like I have arrived now.
Well, my excitement when I'm
imposter anymore.
Thank you. I thought this was such a great way to start our program, because as I'm reading this article in the old school newspaper, I went and I said, "Oh my gosh, that's Gloria. I know her." I was so excited. And so imagine if Gloria, like all of us, stopped before embarking on this and said, "Well, I don't think I'm ready," or "I don't think I'm up to it," or "I've got such a busy schedule," right? Gloria, maybe you could share for our point here. We'll hop into some content, more content here, but this is real world. What, if you would be so kind, what were some of the things, that went through your mind, maybe as I was showing this to the group, or maybe before? You've had so many interviews from reporters. You and your business partner had been quoted and featured in Harvard Business Review, Chicago Tribune, Fast Company, et cetera, et cetera. What went through your mind in preparing for this, or when I just showed it to you?
Yeah, it's interesting, because Sue had historically been the thought leader in our group, and she has an amazing perspective. She's an amazing writer, and she's trying to move on and work less, and said, "Gloria, were you willing to step up and do this?" And so, I mean, first the imposter syndrome started with, how can I be as good as Sue, right? And so even with somebody I admire and I respect, it's still that bit of that challenge to say, am I going to be good enough for it? And so it's been helpful to work on one article and then another, and increase the publications. I'm shooting for HBR next, but to have these other publications have been great. And then to now be able to be quoted in other publications. So not just an article that I wrote, but for reporters to reach out and connect and want some perspective. So that's felt really empowering. And I don't feel so much like an imposter on the writing or thought leadership side anymore, but it took a number of articles for that to happen. And this just, for me, is the icing on the cake. Again, really strange that the print side of it seems to make it more real.
Isn't that nice? Yes, exactly. And look at, this is such a perfect example as we start our program here, that if we let any sort of element, I believe, if I let any sort of element of the poser problem, imposter syndrome, stop me, well, I'm ripping off the world from creating community and from all of the goodness from the ripple effect. So this is really timely. And I think that I've got a couple of things that I want to share. And again, I'm mindful that I'm preaching to the choir here because we're self-actualized women, and the imposter syndrome, poser problem, however you want to call it, it's very subtle. I believe it is very subtle at our level. Okay. It's and whatever level we're at, it's kind of in the background. So let me just jump in. I want to share a couple slides, and then I really want to get your points of view in our conversation. So thank you for being here today. This is such an important topic. And we've got a big responsibility and opportunity out there. There are 8 billion people on the planet, as we all know. And as a coach, consultant, trusted advisor, thought leader, I believe that everyone should have their own coach. They should have their own advisor, their own cheerleading squad. Yes. And I think that with 8 billion people on the planet, we have a lot of work to do. Okay. So we've got a big mission and vision, and that's what we're doing in the C-Suite Network, Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. And so I'm up to that, just like Gloria and all of you, just one step at a time. And so before we jump in, I just want to do a very quick shout out, because we have had, in our typical fashion, amazing programs. Big shout out and thanks to Kathy Dirksen. Her program was phenomenal about how to be maximize your impact as an international best-selling author. Kathy, thank you. Big sparkle fingers to you. It was a great program, really. And you can watch all of our replays on our YouTube channel. And of course, Vicki Holman, we had a great program with her about increasing our cash flow confidence. And that program, she brought in a lot of strategies and tactics that you will want to hear on the replay. So again, big thanks to Vicki. And of course, Carol Kammerer was our speaker, talking about how to elevate your brand and how to use LinkedIn as your platform, among other technologies and social media as well, but how to really elevate your presence, your brand, your online image, and your self-esteem was really part of the theme too. So be sure to watch that replay. And our corporate coaching and consulting roundtable is off the charts. The program last month was so rich. If you were there, I think Susan, you were there as well. It was really deep, really rich. We got into a lot of good discussions about what corporate needs from us and how we can meet the moment. And of course, sales strategies to make more money and grow your business. So take a look. We're now over, I think we're at 103 videos. Each one of these videos on our YouTube channel is gold, sisters, absolutely gold. We're at a master's degree and a PhD level in our council. So thank you. So imposter syndrome, just wanted to lay the groundwork with just a couple things that maybe you haven't thought of before, but I did a lot of research, as I always do for our programs. And the imposter syndrome first started out as a published article. It was called the imposter phenomenon. Now, I know there's a lot of words on this screen and you can glance at this, but it was really a focus of focusing in on women in education and women in professional industries, as it was called, back in 1978. And so it was a leading edge breakthrough phenomenon that started with two women that were interested in the topic. And so from there, it has gone on to become the imposter syndrome. Books and articles have been written about it. It's really always what's up in the news. And I just did a quick Google search to find out that there are over 9,880 posts and results, just in fact, in the last couple of days, when you type into Google on imposter syndrome. And so I think it's getting a little bit of a refresh because of what's happened with COVID. Many of us were, we were locked down for so many years. I know that personally, when I'm now going out and doing presentations, it's a little bit of an adjustment. I have to do some work on myself before I do this. I did a presentation two days ago, and I'm still carrying about 5 pounds in my rears dear. That's impacting my confidence. And so to get out there and to do this presentation and to step into the Zumba instructor that I am in my heart, and to get these ladies moving during our session was a big stretch. And I had a little imposter syndrome, a little poser problem before I did it. So, but came through it wonderfully. So imposter syndrome, I think some of the myths, and I want to present this slide and then get us talking. Perhaps you've heard things like, well, just fake it till you make it, or act like you've been there before, fit in and just act the part. I'm just wondering for each of you, what are the things that you've heard about, going to the next level, trying on a new role, or, a big corporate, gig, or just anything where, it's a big growth opportunity for you. It's a big leveling up of what's possible. What have you heard are kind of some of these myths? What were you told along the way?
It's definitely the fake it till you make it. I have a friend, and in business, her perspective was, when she got this high-level VP role in a company, her perspective was, and she said it out loud, well, me, fake it till you make it. And that to me was sad, because she still is, she's bright, she's capable, she's talented. And what do you have to fake? And it's just such a, crappy message that we send people, rather than leaning in and embracing it and being excited about it. We somehow have to say, well, I'll fake it till I make it. It's self-deprecating, and we got to stop doing that.
And doesn't it create environments where people are doing a lot of faking, right? There's a lot of fakers out there, right? Right. Yes. Yes. I'll share. One of my corporate clients is a Major League Baseball team. And one of the top executives said all the time, this was kind of a mantra, is act like you've been there before. Just act like you've been there before. And I stopped and thought to myself, well, if I've not been, and he was telling this to the players and the team and the staff and all of this, the back office folks. And I thought to myself, well, gosh, if I've never been there before, how do I know what to expect? And it's going to be a little awkward, and there may be some inauthenticity there. And so why don't, maybe the better thing is, let's prepare to be there, instead of act like you've been there before. I don't want to be an actor. I'm not an actor. So just these little subtleties. And it was just such a masculine message of just like, put up your swagger and put up your dukes and act like you've been there before. So kind of an interesting message. Kathy, you've got your hand up. Jump in, please.
And actually, what you just said is a perfect segue into mine. And my previous career, I worked in financial planning, and it was a very masculine system and training and the way we were expected to do things. And so much that was one of their mottos: just fake it till you make it, just go, go, go. And that working their way of doing it just did not fit with who I am and how I do things. So I really had to be faking, and I could feel it, and it was literally eating away at me. And that's one of the reasons I left that whole career behind me, because that model just did not work for me. Whereas now that I'm doing my own thing, where I'm creating what it is and I'm following my heart and what I know I'm supposed to be doing the way I need to be doing it, then there is no faking involved. I know I'm stretching, and I know I'm reaching for places I've never been before, which can be scary. But that feeling of faking it is just not there, because I know that I'm doing me in a bigger way, but it's me.
Yeah.
Please jump in, because can't you feel it if someone is not like all there? They're kind of focused in on, the pretense of it, or acting a certain way, or, it's a real phoniness, isn't it? Act like you've been there before, or fake it till you make it. What have you all, ladies, what have you seen? What's been your experience as well? A lot of pressure in corporate to do that. Yeah, Tricia, please. You have had an incredible corporate career, and then your role as CEO of C-Suite Network, you had a dramatic, from where you were in corporate, running billion-dollar organizations, to C-Suite Network. Maybe in some regards, it was kind of a reduction in image, or, you know what I'm saying, or responsibility or numbers kind of thing. I hope I can edit that out. I'll just do it. But you follow what I'm saying is, it's up and down, it's up and down, it's up and down. Yeah. What because you've been a professional athlete as well. You've been a skater and so many different lives you've lived.
That's true. It's so interesting, the dynamic. And actually, I think in a funny way that lays up perfectly what I was going to say, Kathleen, which is underlying it all is the acceptance of some notion that there is one perfect way. And I don't believe there's one way, and I don't believe there's any perfect way for anything. And I think, any way we play into that with the seniority that we have, with the experience we have, with the influence we have, we're letting ourselves down and letting others down. And that's, there's part of that I feel is a very heavy message. And I know I could be coached to say, Trisha, you don't need to take the weight of the world on your shoulders. On the other hand, I take that responsibility very seriously. So I really think we need to be looking at how do we embrace the perfect imperfection of what each person on our team, in our communities, etc., brings to the playing field, and then go like crazy on that. And people who invite you not to be who you are, not to step in, etc., start playing for a different team, or dedicate yourself to making the difference that you can before you move to another team. And that's, that's where I like the acronym. You can say CEO, and I'm mindful to what that means. But I like DLS, determined little shit. And if we step up and own what we know and who we are and the experience we have, we can make a difference even if we know we're on our way to something else. And, that's, I think we're really calling for that. And I think as women leaders who've kind of gone through the decades that we've gone through, there's a tremendous opportunity to call out that kind of thing and make the difference we all know we make in our communities every day, Anyway.
I so agree. And at my keynote presentation 2 days ago, it was a delightful group of women professionals, women business owners. And I was so surprised when one of the women came up and she said, your nomenclature is so interesting. And I said, well, tell me what you mean. And she said, the way that you talk to us is all about affirming who we are, affirming who we're becoming. And she says, what I get in media, what I get in different circles is she said to me, I feel like I'm never enough. I feel like I'm never doing enough. I feel like I'm not as perfect as the airbrushed, pictures that I'm seeing on Facebook and Instagram and all that. And she said, what a relief, to do that. So I think we can be the catalyst for this movement as well. Yes. Susan, did you want to jump in? Carol? Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, good. Thanks.
For me, one of the big pieces is the fact that having been in the world of architecture and construction, frequently I was the only woman. So it was never about being anything other than myself because I couldn't be them. I had to stand in my own power. And sometimes in doing so, you may talk like them only to shock them. You don't get offended by things that they say. You throw it back at them in a way that they're taken aback that you can throw at them the same, excuse me, but BS they throw at you. And one of the boys is one of those things that sometimes I would say, I can be one of the boys, but that doesn't make me not a woman. And I remember back, it had to be in the 80s, there was a quote, and I just looked it up. It said, whatever women do, they must do it twice as well as men to be thought of as half as good. Luckily, this is not difficult. And that one always made me chuckle because there were times when somebody would say something and I would use that as a backhanded way of saying, I'm not afraid of you thinking I have to do more. I'll do it. I'll step up. I'll show you that I am capable. and just owning that it is about us owning what we know we can do. And that's why that fake it till you make it is always been like, if you're only faking it, you're never making it. To me, that is a way of saying, I don't have to ever accomplish it. I only have to pretend that I did. And if it was only about pretending, then that, that didn't have meat in the game. That didn't have any of your heart and soul in the game. And I just think it's so important for us to go, I can still be a soft-hearted, loving person of others, care about family, care about things outside of business, and still buckle down and do everything I need to do to lead in business the way I need to make it have a bottom line that we can all be proud of, and have a team of people that we love to work with, and honor the skills they bring to the table, and honor who they are outside of this office.
Beautiful. Yeah, completely agree. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I know I can lean in, and we're working at a mastery level. And at the same time, I'd love to just bring in a little contrarian view, because that's my job here, my job to do that. And to also say, thank you that, I think these are many of the things that we've heard along the way, but still I've got a laundry list that these could be some imposter syndrome symptoms that maybe you've experienced. I know I've experienced all of these. And, it runs the gamut of undercharging and undervaluing myself, overworking, my goodness, and inability to accept compliments. That's an interesting phenomenon about that. And, how many of you know other women, or maybe yourself, who someone gives you a compliment and you say, oh, well, oh, that old thing, or, oh, it just took me a moment to write that thing or put that article up or whatever. It's this kind of a deflection of receiving, right? It's really receiving, not going for big opportunities. And I think also comparison, and also a loss of belonging. I feel like that perhaps in my experience, I felt like I didn't belong to the club I was part of in corporate. In many instances, I didn't feel like I was part of that club, that upper, the 1% club that was following all these unwritten rules that I knew nothing about when I got into the tech business 30 years ago. And I also feel like the imposter syndrome could be also settling for, and I'll speak for myself, settling for what's comfortable and easy. So I'm curious, with this beautiful menu here, we got a lot of things, and again, we're all at a mastery level. Are you resonating with any of these things? Because if we leave our time together and like, okay, we got all this handled, let's move on. I don't know that I'm doing my job here as the contrarian, as the founder of the C-Suite Network Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. So for yourself, or maybe even your clients, because if you have experienced any of these symptoms, you can then easily see them in your clients to help them through. So I'd love to pause, and, I'm not asking you to tell on yourself, but, these are symptoms. And also there's a script, that goes along with this, which, the script is in our head and sometimes says, I don't think I can do that, or I'll never make, $1 million a year. Cancel. I didn't want to do it anyway. And, with things that I learned early on is, well, what makes you think you can do that? What makes you think you can do that? Or it'll be just too hard, or it'll be too exhausting for me, or it'll be too difficult, or I can't figure out the tech. So these are the scripts that I think also are aligned with, these bigger things here. So I'm going to pause. What's emerging for you around these two important topics, the symptoms and then the script? I'm asking for a little vulnerability, sisters.
I'll certainly jump in. I'm a little late to the party, but happy to be at the party with everyone. Okay, so comparison.
Oh, yeah.
That's my thing. That's the thing I struggle with the most. But it's what I also find that my clients struggle with as well. So to have walked in those steps myself is helpful for me to help my clients as well. So, social media has killed a lot of what we think is the perfect life. And all we see is the perfect life that this person has. They're on stages talking here and there, and they're looking the part all the time. And I did that for a while, and I realized, right, it wasn't being true to myself, and I wasn't showing the just life, right? Life happens, right? I gained 15 pounds. I'm struggling putting on my jeans. I mean, that's life. And so it's more relatable to people when you're just more yourself. And so, and the person that I had put on the pedestal that I, watched and compared myself to, everything is always perfect on their social media, everything. And so I'm like, well, that's just not relatable to people. So I think also when we compare ourselves to other people, that there are probably qualities, not there are probably, there are qualities that they look at us and go, oh, I wish I had her humility. I wish I had her empathy. I wish I had her kindness. I wish I had, whatever it is that you have. We forget that we have qualities that other people admire that we maybe take for granted, that we don't always see in people. So one of the things that I do mostly if I'm in a group of women and I'm speaking, is we go around the table, and even if you just met somebody, and Kathleen, you do it well a lot of times, is I want you to spend a few minutes looking at everybody at the table and tell them something you admire about them, even if you just met it. It could be, you know what, I wish I had your amazing high cheekbones. I don't care what it is, right? Or you have the most beautiful blue mesmerizing eyes. And then those people are going, then they're looking in the mirror all day going, my eyes are pretty amazing. So it could be physical characteristics, it could be how they speak, it could be how their body language, whatever that is, that I think it's good for us to realize that we have qualities that other people look at us and say, I could never be that person. I could never be Trisha. I could never be Kathleen. People say I could never be Sheila, and we kind of forget that. We're looking at everybody else and not flipping that table and go, people are probably looking at us the same way, saying, I could never be Carol because she's got all this. So we forget that we have those amazing qualities that stand out, and we should keep a list of that, right? And we should keep reinforcing it in each other. So.
Yes, beautiful, Sheila. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. Such great points. And the more visible we become, the more, I think that the more we're being seen, and we're seeing others as well. And what is the saying that we can't see an attribute in someone else unless it's in us too? Just waiting to come out. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So thank you, Sheila. What are some other thoughts about flipping the script? And, could you see any of these things in your own life? Undercharging, overperforming, over delivering, overcompensating, over and under, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Susan.
Go ahead. No, go ahead,
Susan.
Gloria.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Please.
You have your hand up officially.
And for some reason, I'm not seeing that. I apologize to you.
That's no,
It's in
I
your
just put it
logo.
up.
Oh, I see it in the
just
logo.
put it
Now
up.
I see it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah,
What
great.
I always find amazing in conversations with women is a man will present something and say he's going to charge something for a program, and a woman will hear what he's doing and what he's charging and go, well, I do that. I don't know how he can charge that much. And I always say, and why can't you? Or what is it about him that gives him the power to feel that, is he connected with a when you talk about the level of connections, you know, if all of his connections are CEOs, he's used to dealing with people who are used to spending a level of money that if you are only working with entry-level professionals, they are not used to spending. Do they know how to up level to purchase into your program? Do you understand who your avatar is so that your pricing represents who your market is versus why is somebody else in comparison to you able to do something that you do not see as something you should own? And I think that's a big part of that imposter syndrome for women. Yeah.
Excellent.
And the compliment piece. I mean, I can hardly think of a woman who, when you tell her something is nice, that she does not have to add a explanation of it that is like, oh, this cheap thing, or oh, I got it on sale, or I've had it in the back of the closet forever. You know, it is all those things. That's one of those I've had to learn to zip my mouth shut and just go, thank you. And realize if they wanted to know where I got it and what I paid for it, they would ask me.
Exactly. Such great points, Susan. Yes, exactly. And isn't it, it's kind of, it's almost, pointing out to the other person, oh, well, you don't have such great taste or something. It's almost like a little double negative. It's weird. These are habits. And I know that I can lean on the excuse of having amazing parents who, were very, very ambitious, grew up in very humble circumstances. And so it's the deservability that I've had to learn, and the worthiness. Can you relate to the deservability, the worthiness? Any of you? Yeah, yes. And so if we've never been there before, it makes a little bit more difficult. And so we'll talk in a little moment about strategies about how to flip that script. But yeah, yes. On another call, we were talking about breaking through the $1 million mark, or whatever the mark is. It could be 100K, 250, 500, whatever it is. And as we're breaking through, it's the concept, or whatever it is, it's also breaking through the ceiling, but it's also breaking through the lower limits and the upper limits to what we will accept, what we will tolerate, what we'll feel comfortable in the way of income or whatever it is. But it's also breaking through the lower limits. I know that when I got to 139 pounds, I worked so hard. I was a Zumba instructor doing that. It felt really good about myself. But I felt like an imposter. I felt like I was a faker and a poser. I didn't feel comfortable in my body, and I didn't have the tools at the time to be able to embody that 139. And again, I don't care what the number is. And so can you all relate to that? I think this poser problem, imposter syndrome, works upwardly, but it also works on a lower limit as well. Yeah. Who wants to jump in about that?
Well, and then are you really happy, right, at whatever that is, right? You can kill yourself to get to whatever that size, weight, whatever that is.
Yes.
But are you really fulfilled and happy there, right? Or is it you doing it for something else?
Completely. What I know for sure is I was really hungry. I was really hungry. And hungry for what is a whole other conversation. Yes. But I felt like an imposter. I felt I was getting so much attention and compliments. And again, I don't want to make the program, but I want to bring up a whole variety of things, because this feeling of not being myself, I felt very uncomfortable. I could just tell I was posing. I wasn't owning my power at that weight. And so it carried out into, I can look at pictures, and while the dress was beautiful, the woman was not quite all the way mentally in that picture, Yeah. Great.
Kathleen, I can't help thinking, and I know you'll remember this, Keith Ferrazzi's book, Leading Without Authority. At the end of the day, I'm having all kinds of conversations in the back of my head while I'm listening to you, because I want to skip to all my coping mechanisms of how I don't stop, right? So one of the things we have to have as a strategy to be able to do all the things we do is keep moving, right? You can't be sitting and thinking about the 250 choices of food you make every day, and let alone clothing and work and like a family, etc. So how do you streamline? And Keith Ferrazzi's book Leading Without Authority, chapter 2, I believe, is the 6 excuses. And so how do we get away from those excuses that don't work for us, that aren't going to help us deliver what we want to be able to deliver? And so I feel like I'm constantly focused on, I have this outrageous goal, this outrageous mission that I'm on with all, and so many more. And so I've got no time to allow myself an indulgence and an excuse. And so, so my whole inner conversation frequently is, that's an excuse. Where do we go from here? What's the outcome? What am I delivering toward? And that allows me to turn everything around, where it's almost like removing it from me, like if I allow myself to sit in this space where I'm worried about things that I can't control, I know for sure I won't be able to do what I want to be able to do to deliver. And so that I find is a massive inner conversation, because as women leaders, we also have systemic bias, which is not owned by men. It is not owned by men. And frequently, women are absolutely the installers of systemic bias, with all of the pretense of not being. And so we have extra layers that we have to be cognizant of and try to understand, not use as an excuse, but cognizant in terms of how we could create that scenario of success of where we're trying to go. So as everybody's sharing, I keep thinking to, okay, my coping mechanism for that, my coping mechanism for this, and which is a lot of them are automatic for me. And then we all have like our little chinks where it's like a thread on a bad day, just kind of, and then, what do you do with that as well? I think that's also important, is when you know that thread has been pulled, how do you care for yourself and not set it up so that you fail on what you're set out to achieve?
So many great points, Trisha. Yes. And to know what our triggers are, and that's part of the script, isn't it? Yes. Kathy, feel free to jump in. Thanks, Trisha. Great. Yeah.
No, I agree so much. And I know for myself, it's always an ongoing thing. And I think the more we're stretching into something new, the more we'll fight that battle or face those challenges. And like for myself, even just to be the person who's creating books to bring other women in, to lift them through what they're doing, I often am facing this thing about, well, who am I to think I could do that? And who am I to be this leader to lift these other women and take them to a new place? And what my tool that really helps me is reflecting back on the successes of the women that have been in my books. And even when I look back and just like, one of my women now has jumped into doing her own solo book, and she's going to print soon. Another one launched a whole business that she'd been puttering with for ages until the book opportunity came along, and she knew, here's my deadline, I'm going. And another one is now organizing retreats. She's bought into a retreat center in Mexico and is bringing women together. And those are all things that again, my gut goes, oh, don't take credit for doing that. Don't, that's not all you. But if I hadn't sparked that first thing and brought them into this and moved them forward, those things would not have happened. Those opportunities weren't there. And at least they didn't see them. They didn't have the contact with those opportunities until they stepped up, built that confidence, and moved forward with their own things through being in the books. So I keep bringing myself, I think I'm going to start making a list that I can
It's
post on my
gratitude.
wall and just that I can
Right.
look at regularly when I start feeling down. Like, who am I to think I'm doing this or making any impact? And then I'm going to look at my little wall and say, this is the impact I'm having. And where does that ripple go from there of the impact they're now having because of the impact I had? And to me, that's one of the things that really kind of reinforces and gets me out of that feeling of, well, who are you to do?
And
Right.
I don't know, I find like if it's useful, who are you to keep that from women who need
Yes.
that support?
Right.
You know, and so I know for some people that may not be healthy. Kathleen, you'll have a whole perspective, but that keeps me in check all the time where I'm like, how could I not deliver this as best I possibly can? I never make a claim on anything in perfection. All of you know that. But you know, who am I not to get up and swing the bat? You know, people can sit around and criticize how it gets swung. Have at it, but I'm swinging. If you're not swinging, got nothing to say.
I gotta
Right,
tell you, Trisha, I feel like to me that's liberating, right?
yes.
Having that perspective is liberating. Knowing where you're at and what your struggles are, and you know how you bounce back from that thread being pulled is liberating, because it's us being in charge of our lives. And this is what I want younger women to really know, because for me, it you know, it takes being much older for me to be like, I lean into discomfort now because I don't want it to own me. And so I do look for what's the next thing I can do. And I'm really trying to stop the self-deprecating language that's pretty common, or I'm not good at that, or I'm not good at this. So I've done a pretty good job of that. And now it is, what else can I be doing? What else could I try? What experiment, you know, could I do? I've sort of reprogrammed my brain to failures learning, experiments are learning. And it's just, you know, it's liberating. There's a book on personal accountability. Mark Samuel wrote it, and you know, his model tells us that we're faced with challenging situations all the time. Might not be able to change the situation, but it's a reminder we have a choice in how we respond, right? We can choose to be accountable, or we can choose to be a victim. And I don't know who wants to consciously choose to be a victim. So I want to choose to be accountable. So what do I need to do to follow through with that? And that's the stuff that keeps me moving forward and feeling a lot less like an imposter in most cases.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. And what I'm also hearing, Susan, will come over to you as well, is I'm hearing a lot of curiosity here. So yes, very good. So Susan, coming over to you, and then we'll wrap up. We always
Yeah.
wrap up before the top of the hour. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in a interesting conversation Friday morning after a couple of books were discussed, and the gals that were in their 30s were very much, you know, about we need opportunities that we don't find. And many of us who are of an older generation were going, it wasn't easy for us either. The difference is the setup for them now shines a light on them in a way that many of us didn't necessarily have, you know, all the media stuff where between their profiles on Facebook, what they put on Instagram and stuff gets judged by people who have no contact with them in any real way, but have every ability to comment on them as if they have reason to tell them what's right or wrong about them. And I think it really comes down to us being able to unpack what those emotions come up for any of us about what we're feeling and what is triggering them for us. And it may be a completely different situation that targeted and triggered us than what's triggering them, but the emotions are the same. And being able to help them see that there are opportunities for them to get past that turning inward against themselves, that helping them to find the mental genius of themselves that will move them forward, and how to address those things without it being I'm a loser and a failure because of whatever oddity it is that they feel is being put upon them.
Great points. And so, yes. And so notice that, notice what we're noticing. I notice what I'm noticing, and I have a couple of slides. Trish, you wanted to jump in as well.
I also think it's important to challenge ourselves, and I think everyone's kind of alluded to it in different ways, but if we challenge ourselves to stand out, to make a difference, to embrace the perfect imperfection that every single one of us is, we can make that difference and make people think. And I'm so sorry that Sheila's not here for me to say this, but I've started to work with her as my stylist. Now, it was because I have a podcast and a TV show, and I said, listen, if you'd like to be listed as my stylist, I'd love that. And it's an opportunity. And if it makes sense, if it's valuable for you, awesome. Just tell me something I should do and tell me something I shouldn't do. And as long as I'm not embarrassing you, we're all good. And we didn't do anything. And then about 3 weeks later, I had to go to the hairstylist, and so we had this kind of really quick back and forth. And I said, I don't understand. I understand you're saying something about blonde hair, and I'm just not quite getting it. And for everyone to know, I'm naturally blonde. And so this is the darkest I have ever been. And I'll tell you why. It's fun. It's my entertainment. I've always gone up and down, all different colors, you name it, but never this dark. But the reason I'm this dark is because when I went, I told her I couldn't understand, and we didn't have enough time to discuss. So she sent me a one-pager. The very first link was about blonde-haired CEOs. Did you know that the percentage of CEO women who have blonde hair is like 1 million times higher? I don't know. It's something like 52%, 50 some odd percent of CEO women have blonde hair, even though it's only like 2% of the adult women population, something along those lines. And the reason is, of course, we are more socially acceptable and more sweet and more containable, demonstrates a higher socioeconomic status, these types of things that are really associated with women specifically, because men have the same color they have in the natural population as male CEOs. So of course, Sheila didn't tell me one way or another what to do. She just gave me this information that I should be aware of. So I immediately said to my hairdresser, make it dark. I mean, why not? I can. For all my brunette fellow women leaders, you are lovely, amazing, powerful, successful women. And I will be blonde again. So for all of my blonde, anyway, this sounds like something little, and in a way it's ridiculously little. On the other hand, to stand up and support that as women, we can be whatever we want to be, and we can have whatever color hair and whatever our personal style is, own it, play with it, enjoy it. And, so anyway, I think in the big and the little, in the big, if treating people right creates better, more successful, more profitable businesses, more sustainable businesses, prove it. And we have, right? So we prove it and we live it. And so anyway, obviously that's a big, big, big way. And the other is little, but all of it makes a difference. And so anyway, I thank you for letting me share that, Kathleen. I am very mindful to this, and I'm very honored to be here and also to represent, all of what this is and what we are together in the C-suite and all the communities that we serve.
Thank you. That was actually, I learned so much, and it was quite fun. And I've never felt more blonde in my entire life. Blonde brunette. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good. So yeah, so let's complete our time. And I hope this has been helpful and thought-provoking for each of you. I have loved our conversation. And, I think what I'm hearing are some themes is, let's keep our radar up about what's happening for us. Notice what we're noticing, and what's that script? What's that self-talk? We can change it. So many of you talked about that. And, I'm noticing for myself, what's the upper limits that I have on things? And also, what are the lower limits for things? And of course, just trying things, being curious, and whether it's hair color, whether it's asking for more money, whether it's asking to have someone else take on the responsibility, whatever it is, we can get out of our comfort zone little by little and have our clients do the same, because that's where success happens, is right outside, stepping outside. And so as we complete our time, I put together a couple ideas that are really affirming what you've already said. Is I think some solutions are embodying, spending some time with affirmations and visualization, spending time being that person you are. Stop the comparison, keep expanding, growing, and learning. That's what we're all about in the C-Suite Network and the Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, being in a supportive community. And the biggest thing that I want to mention too is I've stopped consuming as much social media and I'm creating more. When you're a creator, you have very little time to be thinking about comparison. Okay. So thinking about how you can be more of a creator mindset that's setting the pace for yourself and that others are looking to. Okay. That's stepping up your thought leadership. So I think these are some really neat ideas. I'm affirming them to myself all the time. And of course, with 8 billion people on the planet, we have a lot of work to do. We have opportunities. And if we're focused on our own stuff, which we're working on all the time, we can't provide all the value that the world wants from us. The world is calling for us. So with that, finally, we've mentioned this a couple times, but, Paul McCartney and the Beatles are part of my inspiration these days. Imagine if the Beatles sat around and said, well, we don't know if this is going to be a hit, or we don't know if Let It Be is going to be a good one. So we're just not even going to start. No, the phrase, Paul McCartney talks about this all the time. Let's go out, gentlemen, and write ourselves a new pool. They were so confident in the work that they were doing that they went and they did the work and they went out and visualized the impact on themselves, their families, and the world. So ladies, let's go out and write ourselves a brand new pool, or whatever it is that you want in your life, and taking new action from today. So thank you. Thank you. What's next? We always have our Saturday morning Women's Success Circle. It's awesome. 27 minutes. It's powerful because the number 27 means new beginnings. So come join us. Check out our YouTube channel. We're busting it, ladies. We're so excited. All of your videos as esteemed faculty are on there, and we're going to have C-Suite Network continue to amplify our YouTube channel. Okay. And we know the real secret with this whole thing is being more powerful together. Okay. Come join our C-Suite Network Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. We want you. We want to promote you, showcase, highlight you, and let's have a conversation. That's where it starts. So with that, thank you. Thank you. Just curious, in our remaining couple minutes, what's your biggest takeaway from our time together? Maybe even what's one next step, if you so desire. What's your biggest takeaway from our time together? We're putting a little bookend on things, right? Yeah. Your thoughts. So your biggest takeaway.
I'll jump in. For me, it was really the robust discussion and that mindset of owning who you are and where you're at and leaning in to what's next is how I'd sum it up. So thank you for that.
And you're welcome. And you too can be a celebrity in any newspaper, magazine around the world, just like Gloria St. Martin Lowry. How about that? Awesome.
I'd go so far to say that we are. So that's another thing is, when you're in great community, everybody's success, everybody's adventures are all our own. And that is just so powerful. So thank you, Gloria, for making us all famous in the news.
You are rising our tide and our boats, Gloria. Thank you. Yeah. And Tricia, thank you for pointing that out. Excellent.
I'm working on it.
There you go. Yeah, good. How
And
about someone
for
else?
me,
Your biggest takeaway?
It's about continuing to share, continuing to lift others that are having a harder time finding the ways to lift themselves. And beyond that, also to write more. I need to get back into writing more.
Thank you. Good.
I like the notion
Kathy,
of
Carol, yeah.
pushing ourselves to the next challenge. what else can we do? I still feel like I am discovering what I can do.
Isn't that gorgeous? Congratulations. Yes. And urging and mentoring your clients to do the same.
Absolutely.
I think
Great,
my
thank
big
you.
takeaway is around the not being stuck and feeling alone in these challenges, and to remind ourselves that all of us that are doing big things go through this. So I think the more we do this and share what we're doing, this is how we move past it, lift ourselves and each other above it.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Oh, thank you. What a beautiful program. What an important program. And I so appreciate each of you. Thank you. Anyone else before we complete? Yeah. Okay. Let's bust through those imposter syndromes. Our time's now, sisters. Lots of love to each of you. Bye for now. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks. Thank you.